Hi, and welcome to the 12th episode of Season 2 of SteamLUG Cast. We're recording this on the 13th of June 2014. My name is Cheese, and with me I have DerRidda.
Hello.
John Drinkwater.
Hello, everyone.
Nemoder.
Hi there.
And special guest, John Warner from Over the Moon Games.
Hello.
Welcome back. It's been a while since you joined us. You joined us for episode 10 of Season 1 last year.
It was last October, yeah?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. It feels like a long time ago, anyway.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that was back during the Kickstarter campaign, right?
Yeah, it was. It'd be 8 months, right? Something like that.
Must be nearly 9 months now, I guess.
Yeah, the clock keeps ticking.
That's how long it takes to hatch a game, people.
Yeah.
And babies.
A good point. Sometimes it feels like the same thing. Well, what do I know, actually, come to think of it? I just pulled that statement completely out of my arse.
As most statements on the cast are. So before we dive in, let's have a quick recap of what we've been playing. DerRidda, what have you been up to?
I have been playing that game, The Fall. You might have heard of it.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, by just looking at it, you might not think it's an adventure game, but it is an adventure game, and a damn competent one at that. But also, disclaimer, my name is in the credits for redoing the translation in German, so if you think that biases my opinion, feel free to think that it does not. But just so you know.
Yeah, you really swooped in and saved us there.
No problem. And I've been playing a lot of Civilization 5, which we will talk about a lot later.
Quite a bit, in fact.
But damn, it kills just as much time as people claim it does. And I briefly continued Shadowrun Dragonfall. So what have you been playing, John? Drinkwater.
Much like you, playing quite a bit of Civ 5. As I said before, it's my first venture into a decent Civ game. I'm enjoying it so far, but I need to get into it a bit more. And I've been playing some No More Room in Hell, and that's about it. What about you, Cheese?
I feel a bit weird. Lately I've been feeling really busy. I don't feel like I've had much time to play. I really have only spent a short amount of time in each of these games, but I have managed to spend that short amount of time in a whole hell of a lot of games. So I tested some VVV, which has just been re-released thanks to Flibbit. Some Guns of Icarus Online, which was fun. We're going to talk about that in a minute as well. A little bit of Spelunky. The Fall, as we mentioned. I'm biased as well. My name's in the credits too. I played through The Plan and got its one achievement, which I didn't realize it had, and that was kind of interesting. Tested some Overgrowth for the Warfire devs. Did some bug hunting in Snapshot. I streamed Kentucky Route Zero for Game Club, played a little bit of Battle Block Theatre, we had our TF2 event, been testing some Sanctum 2, bit of Space Base DF9, some Race the Sun, Shufflepuck Cantina, and I'm testing Hand of Fate and Crypt of the Necrodancer as well. That's too many games.
A few games.
That's amazing.
Too many games. But yeah, it's like only half an hour in each kind of thing, aside from Civ, which ate up 17 hours of my life in my first sitting. It's funny, I used to play, lost many nights to Civilization 2 and Alpha Centauri, so it's a bit of a nostalgia trip going on there as well. Nemoder, what have you been up to?
Well, I've still been playing Factorio. They just got a new release out, pretty cool. And, of course, Civilization 5, and Guns of Icarus Online. And Planetary Annihilation is actually getting quite a bit better than its initial release. And I played a little bit of Papers, Please.
Glory to Ashtotska.
Had you not played Papers, Please before?
I hadn't. I heard a lot about it, but I finally just started playing it.
I'm interested to know what you think.
It was not what I expected, and it's turned out to be a lot more enjoyable than I originally thought it would be.
Right.
The thing I love most about that game, aside from everything, is the way that it takes what is kind of counter to what you would expect. Like most UI stuff is about exposing efficient methodologies for doing things and exposing efficient ways to do things, and often you end up with emergent complexity as you progress. So you unlock new abilities that are more difficult to perform. But Papers, Please goes in the opposite direction. Everything is hard, and as you progress, you unlock things that make it easier.
Yeah, somewhat.
That's true, yeah.
I just like the whole psychology of it, that it puts you in a position where you stop caring about people you should be caring about.
I love that. That's amazing.
It is a fantastic game.
Yeah, and I'm surprised how effective that is for sometimes choices that don't seem like they affect the gameplay, and actually probably a lot of the times don't. People that you'll probably never see again, but you kind of construct this story in your head, right? Of, oh, they're gonna suffer if I don't let them in, or something like that.
Dwarf Fortress has a lot of that too.
Oh, really?
I'm so sorry. I'm just min-maxing this a lot, and I don't really care. I only really care about that guy that comes again and again.
Georgie!
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, he's amazing.
Oh, the guy without his papers. Yeah, I love him. There have been a couple times where I've gone back because I haven't, managed to stop a terrorist attack on the thing, and I didn't want to mess up that aspect of the story. And I'm like, oh, kind of really invested. I can be a better aim next time. I might just go back and play through that again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a harrowing game, I think.
Very much.
So John, what have you been playing, if anything?
Well, not much, because I've been running around like a fool trying to get this, promote the game. But a little bit. Danielle and I, every once in a while, my girlfriend, in the evenings, will sit down and play something. And lately, it's been. Actually, on your recommendation, we did finally get time to play Kentucky Route Zero Episode 1, which was amazing.
Fantastic. What do you think?
I thought it was really good. I mean, it's very unique feeling. Very what's the word? It's kind of ethereal and a little confusing. Like it's a little bit, you definitely have to kind of think about it.
It's very surreal.
Yeah, that's a better word. Surreal. It is very surreal. Yeah, which is fantastic. And there's not a lot of games that do it like they did it, and they really nailed that feeling. So we loved it. But otherwise, every once in a while, we spend some time and play Shadowrun, the new one, the expansion. And lately we've been actually going back and playing Uncharted 2, because my girlfriend hasn't played that one yet.
I absolutely adore that game.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm super excited for the fourth one.
Mm-hmm. But it's such a tease to just show Drake at E3 and, he gets up, walks off, and that's it.
It's true, yeah, it is. It's true, yeah. Although the musculature on his face, which you'll never see in game, of course.
Oh, yes.
Amazing.
I don't know how they can do all that work, really, to pull it off, but I expect good things from them.
Yeah, it's incredible.
E3 is bullshot time.
Is what?
Bullshot time. All the CG stuff, which the game will absolutely never look like.
Yeah.
I expect it to look like that, frankly. I mean, they did quite a lot of stuff in Uncharted 2 and 3 to bump up the texture and model quality. If you looked at it, when you aim, it streams in a higher quality thing. So it does look really good in the game.
Yeah.
There didn't look to be that much bull shots this year, frankly. I mean, most people were concerned about the new Zelda looking fake, but that also looks mostly real.
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty solid too. And I would believe that Uncharted 4 looks like that, because it is a next-gen system, and Uncharted 3 looked fantastic, and each iteration has been a complete jump forward in terms of fidelity as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe. I hope so.
So, moving on, John, you've joined us to have a chat with us about The Fall, perhaps amongst other things. Do you want to fill us in on what development's been like over the past 8 to 9 months?
Right. Well, development was actually a lot of fun. I don't know if anybody's listening that listened back when we were just doing the Kickstarter, but getting funded was amazing. So we put the money to good use, and I just basically kind of put my head down and started working away. A number of months ago, I hired a writer because it was becoming apparent that although the idea was pretty good and the story structure was kind of getting there, it wasn't all the way, and I really needed some help. So that allowed me to bring in a writer and polish that and everything, and kind of push the game up to where it is. But yeah, we just released. It was a crazy, exciting development cycle, around which, by the way, I'm very thankful that I had some good Linux consultant. I don't know if people know, but you, Cheese, helped me a lot with making sure that the game ran on Linux and helping me track down a few bugs and that kind of stuff. That was amazing. But
it was a pleasure to be involved with.
Yeah, well, anyway, other than that, I mean, I don't know what to say about the development for the most part, it was really pretty standard development cycle, but we just launched on the 30th, and that's been more exciting than anything.
How do you feel Unity was to work with? Was this your first Unity game? I think it was.
Oh no, actually, I did a number of Unity things. I actually was a part owner of a corporation out in Vancouver, North Vancouver, called Harmony Arcade, with a few friends that went belly up a little while ago. But I've been kind of fiddling with Unity for years, actually.
Oh yeah.
I started out as a tech artist. I'm not really like a hardcore application developer, so Unity's perfect for guys like me that are kind of more art-centric anyway. But I found it's fantastic, and the porting has been amazing. I mean, I'm also working on a port for the Wii U, and like people have been complaining about the process, and I've ran into a few snags myself. But I mean, for the most part, Unity is amazing at being this really clean, concise, one-click export for the most part.
Yeah, it's been pretty solid on the platforms that I've tested on. Aside from a couple little bits and pieces, and we were sort of able to reach out to Unity and try and get a couple of those things sorted. Hey.
Right. Yeah.
Have you needed to reach out to Unity at all for much?
No, not on my side. I mean, I ran into a few bugs while trying to port the Wii U, but they're actively patching the build. So whenever I run into a problem, I usually just wait, and within like a few weeks, I'll have a new Wii U build up, and it runs much better. So they've been fantastic. But that's a whole other side of things. We did actually run into a few interesting problems. There is. You sent me an email just today, Cheese, about the Unity just released a patch to fix that bloody black screen bug that we had.
Right, which is fixed in Unity 4.5.1, I believe.
Yeah.
So
right.
yeah, that was something that we reached out and we kind of said, hey, we've got this problem, and Levi Bard from Unity had a look over what we were doing, or what you were doing, and offered a workaround, which managed to get things rolling towards launch, which is good.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Yeah, very good. It ended up being like a few hacks, but it works anyway. Thank God. It's funny, with a problem like that. It's usually if you really bang your head against the wall enough times, you'll break through. Usually.
So how do you feel working with Steam was, just getting the game in there and for all platforms and all that?
Steam, I was absolutely shocked at how naive I was in terms of expecting a little bit more involvement from Steam. The writing, and I blame myself really, because the writing was on the wall. Like there was that. Remind you guys, what was the game that got all the bad press? The flight, the airplane game.
Air Control.
Air Control.
Yep.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that came out and everybody was like, "Holy shit, Steam has basically jumped the shark." But I missed it because I had my head down basically. But the Steam pipeline is fantastic. Like, it's extremely easy to work with. It's very easy to get the game on Steam. Like, the process from going through Greenlight onto release is completely automated. But on that sense, the fall was approved for shipping, and I didn't hear from anybody. I expected that I'd hear from somebody from Valve, would at least reach out and say, hey, I'm your sales rep or whatever. Maybe consider launching on this day as opposed to that day. But there's absolutely no information. It's all documented. So that was a total shock, that if you're launching on Steam, you need to handle it yourself, and it needs to be like a product launch that is more or less unsupported, which means like probably a more traditional marketing push as well, which is something I didn't do.
Yeah, it sounds a little scary not having somebody there to kind of help you through if you get stuck.
It was a little bizarre. It was weird. It was like, it was like staring into a vacuum.
It's kind of weird because some people on the Steam forums have been discussing getting sort of replies to say that you should delay launches around their sales. So obviously it might just be that you were at a point where there's such a lull that they didn't feel that they had to point out, oh, this is probably a problematic launch day or anything.
Yeah.
But from hearing from developers in the past, Steam pipelines got an awful lot better over the last year. So it might just be that they're getting to a point where it does feel smooth enough that they can be hands off, and then they sort of expect feedback to know that, that developers want a bit more, maybe.
Right, yeah, well, it could be. I mean, I have always suspected that it's just the sheer number of games. Like, they can't possibly reach out and talk to everyone and schedule and organize and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, if they're releasing stuff, like if stuff slips by, like Air Control, then it's clear that they're trying to move into like a more automated process, which I guess that's their prerogative. I mean, I was talking to Cheese a little while ago. Like, I think that I would almost prefer it was a little more curated, but I can understand that they're trying to open up, I guess.
Well, what Simon Roth tweeted about was when people asked about Steam being more curated, everybody wants a kingmaker back because they figure they will be made king.
Right.
Yeah, everybody complained a lot about how much of a closed castle Steam was and how hard it was to get in there. And it's kind of this is what everybody was asking for, and it's going to take a little while to get used to it and be able to navigate it with some sense of surety and confidence.
I do get a feeling that most people who were asking for it wanted Apple's model rather than Google's. I think they didn't want to say, we want to go for Apple's model, because that sounds silly enough as it is. They were just saying, we want openness. And then, maybe they're a bit too afraid of that current position. But with some of the stuff that Valve seems to be discussing about allowing people to create their own sort of Steam, then, that might rein it in again and have a completely open store for everyone. And then sort of, not celebrities so much, but just groups and people picking their picks. And,
Right.
It might do quite well.
Right.
That means instead of having one gatekeeper, you've now got potentially an unlimited number of gatekeepers and an unlimited number of gates through which to pass your products. So that seems like a more favourable outcome to me.
A lot more work, but a lot less luck if you don't get noticed.
Yeah, well, the key is that you need some sort of aggregation system so that there's at least some type of curation somewhere, so that there's a list that you can get on that people look at that they expect either a certain quality or a certain type of game or something like that. And the difficulty right now is that it's open up to the point where it seems like chaos.
I think we don't have a lot of metrics to really measure the quality of stuff like that.
That's true.
And it's hard to see when something like, what was that, Earth Year 2066, it's hard to identify that unless you're really paying close attention to it, I think.
Right. I didn't hear about Earth Year 2066. Was it a bomb?
That was pretty much Air Control before Air Control. That was the OG gangster crap up game.
Right, I'm looking at the pictures right now. It's it looks pretty amazing.
I think it had some blatantly ripped off assets as well.
Oh no.
It was all wrong, basically.
But yeah.
I almost gotta tip my hat in a weird way to people that steal assets, like the balls that are required. Like, why would you ever even try and do that?
I think people don't think they'll get noticed.
Yeah,
Which is even more impressive that people don't think that.
Yeah, people go, well, either I'm too small to be noticed, I'm going to fly under the radar, or I'm that big that nobody's going to, attack me. And that's the experience I've seen with everybody. Every kind of plagiarization falls into one of those two categories.
Interesting.
Well, I see a lot of stuff where it's just a communications breakdown, like somebody gets hired in to find assets or make their own, and then they don't let them know that these are placeholders or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that happens too. So the Fall's been launched on Steam, but you've got other platforms, both hardware platforms and distribution platforms on the way. You want to talk a little bit about what you got planned there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, the launch was not very good. We had some massive visibility problems, and part of that is because, I'm not sure what I can say. Let's just say that I haven't when we started talking about our launch, we really had no idea when the Steam sale was going to hit. It could hit any time in the summer if it was going to hit at all. So we wanted to push and get it out beforehand. We thought that was probably the best strategy. And it looks like our launch timing was incorrect, or maybe we had some other visibility problems surrounding it, of course. So our Steam launch wasn't very good, and I actually might post numbers about that soon, because I think that I can turn it into an interesting story. So maybe in a couple of weeks I'll do a Game of Suit article or something. But anyway, we are playing a sort of a game of catch-up now. So it looks like we're going to be coming to the Humble store on Tuesday. So we're working really hard over the weekend to plan a sort of second launch. I've got another trailer that focuses more on story and gameplay and all that kind of stuff. And I'm looking at doing another Game of Sutra article talking about the fall story on Tuesday and putting together an art package for a few of the art websites. So we're doing hopefully a second launch, and then some other storefronts will follow soon, I hope. And other than that, it's coming to the Wii U. I have it working on the Wii U on my dev kit. It works great. It runs at a solid 60 frames a second for the most part. It's just a matter of sending it to Nintendo and getting it through lot check, really.
What does a touchscreen do on the Wii U?
I'm not using the touchscreen for the fall. I actually experimented with a few options for using that gamepad because it is really cool. But the truth of the matter is that everything I tried, I found that it kind of interrupted the experience. I mean, the fall is kind of, exploration and story. I thought about maybe I'd put some GUI elements or something like that on the touchscreen so you can interact with something in the world and then get more data on the touchscreen or something. But the truth of the matter is that it was just jarring a little bit to look from your TV back to the gamepad. So I'm just implemented straight up TV to gamepad output basically. So you can play it on the gamepad or play it on the TV. And although that sounds a little cheap, I think that really is the best option for the fall.
That's actually a lot of people want from their Wii U games, and way too few games actually have implemented.
Really? The
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
the TV output?
Well, like if it gives you extra flexibility with where you can play and how you can play, instead of being locked to sitting down a particular way facing a screen. You can turn around, you can face a different direction, you can sit somewhere else. You're not bound by that viewport to your TV anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And I was a little bit cynical when they saw it advertised, when they announced the Wii U, but it's actually pretty cool. And playing the game on the gamepad is it actually works surprisingly well. It's making me think that I need to port it to PS Vita if I can get my hands on that.
I think Sony would agree with you.
Well, I'm glad they would. That sounds good. I gotta get incorporated. Sony won't deal with me unless I'm incorporated.
Well, that's frustrating.
I guess, but it's the name of the game.
So what kind of reception do you feel that you've gotten from people who've played the fall, and also from people who got on early with the crowdfunding campaign?
Oh, right. Actually, responses from the crowdfunding campaign have been incredibly positive for the most part. As far as people, well, I'll get back to that in a minute because there's an interesting story there. But as far as people that have played the game, for the most part, is positive. I'm finding that if I show it to people that I think they really enjoy adventure games or they enjoy stories, then they lose their mind. And I've been getting these incredibly positive reviews. I've been getting 9 out of 10s, 8 out of 10s. Somebody called it a modern classic. IndieGameMag.com, the guy just recently, I think the quote was, "Hands down, the fall is one of the best games I've played." So it's incredibly flattering. On the other hand, a lot of people have a problem with some of the controls. We recently got a 6 out of 10, and as far as I could tell, the only problem the guy had with it was that he hated the controls. Like, he hated them. To the point where it lost us 40%. So it's
wow.
Yeah, it's really frustrating to see that kind of stuff, especially because that's the review that dropped our Metacritic rating. We had 2 90s and an 80 on Metacritic, and we were just about to get our Metacritic score, but then we got this 60 review, and I was upset when that happened. Let me tell you. But anyway, the point is that the reviews have been completely mixed. I have no idea what to expect. I'm still waiting on Indie Static and PC Games End to post a review. I really hope they give me a good review, obviously, but I have no idea. They might hate the controls, or they might hate something else, or God forbid they run into a bug, which is something that I struggled with in especially the first week after we launched. Cheese, you remember that? That was a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of... It was interesting, and while it may not have necessarily been a positive experience for some of the people who encountered launch bugs, I feel like it was an interesting and positive experience for me to kind of get in there and be involved and offer a bit of help, interacting with and dealing with people.
Right.
Helping triage stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you were there. It's great because you're in Australia, so I would be on the Steam forums, then I'd go to bed, and then in the morning there'd be these problems, and I'd wake up, and they'd be like, "Oh, Cheese is on it." He's been quelling the fires.
Yeah, I felt like we had that time zone handoff thing down pat.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, my girlfriend is super impressed. She doesn't have any idea who you are, but you've been like fighting these PR fires. It's been amazing.
Nice.
It's interesting, and I kind of like from day one. Kind of my instinct said that this was an interesting project and it was worth being passionate about. And even though I didn't think that I would have time to be involved in any meaningful sense, I guess I couldn't stay away.
Cheers. I'm flattered, man. Great.
We talked back in episode 10 of season 1 about how you kind of go about handling, or how you might go about handling input and feedback from people who want to, provide something or give back to the development process. How much of that do you think that you had across the course of development from your Kickstarter backers, and are you getting feedback now? And I know that you have. You mentioned it just earlier, but are you getting feedback from people that who want to kind of give some input into the sequel?
Right. Yeah, a few ideas. Not many. Usually it's from people that are, of course, really excited, so I'm always flattered. I think it's great. I mean, one thing I pride myself on is I like to think that I'm good at taking in ideas and making the person feel respected, or I try anyway, and then deciding to go my own way. I think that's really important when you're doing something. I think that when people offer something, they have a point. Like, most people are intelligent, at least in their own way, and when they make a point, they're making it for a reason, and it's like representative of an audience. So I would be a fool not to take the advice. I know that you've expressed some interest in a certain direction, and I actually quite agree with you. I think that a lot of the ideas that you've shared would be fantastic.
It's exciting stuff.
Oh yeah, cheers. Yeah, I'm excited to move forward. Like, I've got a few good ideas myself, but I don't know. I don't want to share them publicly yet, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, I think that also it'll become more apparent when I start getting a little bit more publicity. Hopefully, if that happens, if the game starts actually getting some visibility. I was amazed at when we did our Kickstarter. I talked up this whole AI with a human inside the suit dynamic, and a few of the news websites that picked it up, like Kotaku and Rock Paper Shotgun, started putting this Isaac Asimov bend on it and started projecting all this rules and stuff like that on it, and I was really amazed to see that how well that caught on and how people took it and ran with the idea. I think it's because those ideas are accessible, like people understand what Asimov is and know what the rules are. So we kind of we did this weird pivot at the beginning of the Kickstarter where we kind of shifted and was like, oh yeah, it's all about rules. It's all about rules because it's what people respond to.
I think it worked pretty well as a kind of an intro to what the game was going to start dealing with.
Right. Cheers.
But are you not a bit afraid of being compromised in your original vision if you change pretty much core aspects of your game like that?
No, and the reason is that I think I have a clear idea what the core aspects are. I mean, there's a difference between my core vision and how it's being received and what people seem to respond to. Like when we decided to exaggerate the rules aspect of the game because it's something that's accessible. People know about Asimov, for example. It's such a small shift, and I don't think that it actually changes anything. I mean, for me, the core thing is the vibe, the mood, the character progression, and the conflict that she goes through, and the change, and the themes surrounding oppression and struggle and how boundaries are sometimes constraining and some of that stuff. In terms of how visible certain ideas are, like the rules, well, a lot of that stuff is it's good, it's positive, and it just adds to the story, right? So I think there is a little bit of wiggle room, if that makes sense anyway.
Do you feel that that over the last 8 to 9 months that the story has, or that the fall in general has taken directions that you didn't expect?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, Caleb, my writer, has been fantastic. I'm not a good writer, and when it comes to, I mean, I think one of the reasons that the fall works in some ways is because they're robots, and when I write, or when I started writing, I'm like this emotionless psychopath almost. So it's easy to write dialogue for a robot when you're a crappy writer. But when Caleb came in, he made it amazing. He added all this emotionality that I just couldn't have done, and all the conflict between Arid and the mainframe AI character, that's all him, that's all his doing. And it was a weird experience for me because I had this clear idea of what I wanted it to be, and when he started writing it, it changed a little bit, but he kind of made it better. So that this has been a weird experience for me of going from this almost fascist Nazi death grip on the project, where it's I want to have total control over this because I'm going to make it good and yada, 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 to this thing where it's well, if I'm bringing in creative people, I can't empower them and take their freedom from them at the same time. Like there has to be some wiggle room. Like you can't have a project where there's autonomous people working on it and not give them some control, right? So that's been a weird experience.
It did feel like there was like a tonal shift. You're not necessarily a shift in things that happened in the game, or just kind of in the way that the story was presented that I felt was noticeable across the early builds.
Interesting.
As Caleb's work came into it.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, just and it's really only that really early first bit before you enter up into the testing area. But just kind of your interactions with the other suit and the caretaker when you first encounter him, your responses to the environment and to the hurdles that you start to identify as you begin the game, and you realize that you are bound by these restrictions that we mentioned earlier. The way that was presented just kind of it became more compelling as the writing started to get polished up.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I have the same experience too. Yeah, I feel very blessed that I got involved with Caleb. I think he was a lifesaver.
Did he touch the robot dialogue as well, or are they still original how you wrote them?
All of the dialogue, well, actually, all of the text in the game now has been passed through his hands, including the observation points that you explore in the game. Yeah, all the writing is his.
Good to know, because you really nailed that down, the divide between how the machines talk and how the mainframe AI talks, who is less of a machine when you meet him.
Cheers.
I must really compliment him on that.
Yeah, thank you. I'll pass it on. Absolutely.
So was there much you had to basically cut out of the first part that was released? I mean, I know a lot's probably going to go into the sequels, but do you feel like there's a lot left out?
Yeah, there's a few things.
At least one oven pan.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, there's some text in the translation that isn't in the game. Yeah, there was a few little things. The biggest thing was that there was this idea that I had. There's that scene where Aaron's being evaluated and the droid starts the neural wipe and the screen goes to ASCII for a minute there. If you remember that scene, if you guys have played it.
Yeah.
So that effect, I had this idea where I wanted you to have to like jack into computers at a certain point, and the world would transition to this ASCII, and you can move around. It's just an ASCII filter, and it would be kind of like this cyberspace overlay over the real world. So at first it would look the same as the setting you were in, but then as you walked away, all the shapes and everything would kind of devolve into like this scrambled, abstract, codey noise and stuff like that, and you would kind of use this cyberspace to like go and explore these different computer networks and like read data and lore about the world and like log files that were left behind and stuff like that. But it was crazy. I got it working, but the only lasting footprint of that system was an annoying bug that actually happened to a few people during the evaluation scene that I finally fixed a few weeks ago.
That would have been interesting to see some of that. I know some other games have tried to do that kind of mix of real world and cyberspace, and sometimes it works really well, and sometimes it's just like, why is this here?
Right? Yeah. Well, I would like to explore it with the second episode, maybe, because we have some other ideas that might work well. But that is a good question. Like, why? I don't know. I really want to get clear, like, what we're trying to say with each thing, and then just like cut.
Yeah.
It's like sculpture. You start with something big and you chisel it down. You refine it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, as we mentioned earlier, DerRidda has done the German translation for The Fall. What was he like to work with? Say as many bad things about him as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, he was a nightmare. No, he was wonderful. It was amazing. We got, as you know, we started getting these comments every once in a while that the German translation was a joke. Like, not just bad, but it was like I got scammed basically. And you sent that over to DerRidda, and DerRidda, thank you so much. You got back to us and basically read the whole thing and were like, yeah, it's extremely bad, and you thought you could fix it for us. So we started immediately. You were really flexible. This guy was great. I mean, DerRidda, you worked like very hard and fast and got it in like immediately. And I mean, I'm still not a judge of German, which is why I had the problem in the first place, but we haven't had any more complaints, so that's got to mean something, right?
Yeah, I hope. That was my first semi-professional translation in any regard, and I'm happy that nobody's bashing my head against the wall.
Oh. Good. Excellent.
So who was it that you originally contracted with to do it?
It was a woman on Elance called Manola. I feel embarrassed saying this, but I actually gave her a 5-star review. And the reason was that I guess that in the last day or so we were talking back and forth, and she seemed really nice, and she was asking a few questions. And I figured, well, this person is helping me out. I feel like I should reciprocate, but I should have waited. I should have waited to see, how the translation was reviewed, because if I could, I would go back and change my review and write a scathing one, of course. But that's the way she goes.
Was that just for the German one, or did she handle other translations?
Oh yeah,
too?
no, just for the German one. We have Italian, Spanish, German, and French, and so far we haven't had any complaints. The other guys have all been fantastic. The French especially, she's been wonderful.
One thing that I kind of thought was interesting that came out of this was, as you say, if you don't speak the language, it's very hard for you to do any kind of quality assurance on it yourself. It's hard to verify and understand that that everything's okay. But something DerRidda highlighted was that he put it into a spell checker.
Yeah.
Just an automated spell checker, and that threw up some red squiggly lines, and I'm like, that's something that anybody can do. You don't need to speak a language, you just turn your word processor or spell checker or whatever to some other language and run across it, and that's an easy way to just get at least one metric to start looking at benchmarking the stuff that you get back.
Yeah, it's a good idea, and it's that was the biggest shock, that it was like, really, there's spelling mistakes. I mean, part of the reason I think I didn't even think about that is because it never even occurred to me that it was something that I needed to do. But of course it is.
Me neither. I mean, it never occurred to me that that it would be something that you'd need to put much thought into, let alone that there would be a way for you to kind of at least have that kind of cursory look over it. And, some web processing apps have some basic grammar checkers that might give you some indications as well. Can't trust them much though.
Yeah, well, sometimes Google leads me in the wrong direction as well.
So what sort of plans do you feel you have for the once the launch period is over? Let's call the launch period May 30th through to after we launch, when things have the launches are concluded more or less. What do you think is in the future for the fall, for yourself, and for whatever sequels may come?
Well, my goal right now, because like I said, the launch hasn't gone the best, my goal right now is to find a strategy to finish episode 2 and 3. Hopefully when this is all said and done, we'll have generated enough revenue to actually make that possible. We'll see. I mean, the guys are still with me. They're still excited about the project, so we should be good to go. But I mean, for the foreseeable future, it's just working on the next episodes, really. I mean, I'd like to port the game, certainly. Like I said, I was interested in PS4 and Vita and Xbox, of course, but the more time I spend on that, obviously, the more episode 2 is going to be delayed, and I've got to offer support to different platforms. So I need to start considering whether there's a point at which I'm shooting myself in the foot. But we shall see. Yeah, I mean, really nothing much to say. We just need to start working on episode 2 and start bouncing ideas off one another and moving forward, really, so that we can finish this up and make it awesome.
So what platform do you think is your favorite for playing it on, or what would you like to see it played on the most?
Oh,
Linux.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, Linux. Oh, how could I? Right, obviously Linux.
But no, more like along the lines of like what kind of control schemes. I mean, keyboard, mouse, games to pad, or whatever.
Right. Well, I personally like the gamepad the best. I really like playing it with an Xbox 360 controller on my PC. That's what I designed it for. There's been a few complaints about the keyboard and mouse, although there's been a few complaints about the gamepad as well, and Cheese has suggested that he likes playing it on a keyboard and mouse, so...
Yeah, it's my weapon of choice.
It seemed to me like the gamepad would have been a better fit, mostly just because of the one thing that you can't see your mouse cursor, and so when your mouse is on the edge of the screen, you're barely moving at all, and when it's close to your character, it's just jumping all around.
Yeah, that is a problem, and I've been mulling around ideas in my head about how to design around that. The big difficulty is that I want the player to be able to move forward and back while being able to face one direction. So the position of the mouse cursor on the screen is basically what determines the facing of the player. So I could create some kind of virtual cursor that kind of, or mouse movement rather, that just kind of changes the aim. And then I guess I could look for a strong horizontal movement to cross an axis, but that seems sloppy. I don't know if you guys have any ideas.
Just to have a dot on the screen that shows where the cursor is, like even if it's only when your weapon's out or whatever, then that would help tremendously.
Right.
As soon as you've got a cursor, though, you're going to have people going, why can't I click on an item to interact with it?
Yeah.
Or just link it with your beam or your laser or your flashlight or something so that it looks like it's tied to it. You're not trying to click on things with it.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the point that Cheese just brought up about the cursor, and there's another thing as well, which is the aiming is a mix-in animation. And the reason is that I wanted to do a thing where the torso moves a little bit. Like if you look at a game like the Swapper, which is amazing. I do not mean to denigrate the game at all, but the arms kind of flop around in a way because it's kind of late. It's kind of, well, I would assume it's linked directly to the cursor in this sort of it's just kind of locked exactly there. So when you move the cursor, his arms kind of flop around. I don't like that look. I wanted to get a more natural look, so when Arid looks up, her torso actually bends back a little bit. So there's actually an animation where, and all the animation is 100 frames, where basically she looks all the way up, and then it aims down to the floor, and then that is linked. The percentage of that animation basically is linked to like some simple trigonometry, basically, that gets the position of the mouse cursor and determines like how far up or whatever, blah 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 blah. So there is this issue where if I bring in a mouse cursor, I need a solution to actually make sure that when you click on something, the bullet goes to that mouse cursor exactly and doesn't deviate, because if it deviates a pixel, people are going to complain.
Yeah.
I'd started to think that an option to explore could be locking the cursor to a fixed radius from the character origin.
That's a good idea.
So that as the character moves around, the cursor always stays the same distance, and that way as you move the mouse, it moves naturally in a mouse-type fashion around that arc, and gives you something that's a little bit closer to what you get on a gamepad.
Yeah, that was my hope as well. That's actually how I expected it to work. When not seeing a mouse cursor, I expected it to be relative to the character at all times.
Yeah, that would be good.
And not to the screen position.
Right. Okay, that's actually not a bad idea. I'm going to write that down.
Did we just hear the ball pen clicking?
We did, yeah.
I think so.
We did.
We did.
See, taking external input, it's good.
This is the power of community.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, I'm going to play with that. That might be a good idea.
Remind me to send you a link. I was actually looking this up yesterday and found an example of a technique to do that, so I will pass that on.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, please do. Please do.
So we mentioned a little bit earlier that you kind of felt like you were expecting a little bit more guidance, I guess, and a little bit more personal contact from Steam as you went through the process. I mean, retrospectively, how do you feel that Greenlight went? I mean, you did pretty well in getting greenlit before the end of the crowdfunding campaign, if I remember right.
Yeah, and I that's part of the reason I'm so shocked that the Steam launch didn't go well. But I suspect that there's a number of reasons that Steam launch didn't go well. Like, it's kind of a perfect storm of failings, basically. The Green launch was fantastic, but I also did a much more measured response, or a much more measured launch with the Kickstarter. I mean, for one thing, I wasn't scared. I wasn't running scared trying to get the game out before a sale, basically. So I took a little bit more time, and I planned it a little bit better. And in retrospect, I realized, okay, that was a mistake recently. But there's a few other issues. When we picked our launch date of the 30th, we checked out the new releases, and not a lot of them had been sort of targeted yet. And as we got closer to the 30th, more people started saying, oh yeah, 30th, me too, me too, me too. And by the time we launched, there was actually a lot of games launching on the 30th, namely The Forest and The Stomping Land. Both which games I overlooked and didn't properly evaluate social media following. Like the Forest has got something like 100,000 Facebook likes. Like they've been building a community for a long time. So I think that a lot of it comes down to just getting bitch slapped on launch day. but there's I don't know. It's really confusing. I mean, there was a game I just like every once in a while. It's hard not to get like bitter and pissy about it. But like I checked the Steam store yesterday, and there's like in the featured games, there's games that look, in my opinion, they look bad. I don't want to start talking trash, but I think so. So some of it I think came down to just launch timing and just picking the wrong window. And I wonder if we'd launched on Monday instead of the Friday, if we'd be in a slightly better position. Also, the trailer. There's a few other things. Anyway, I'm babbling, but the point is, you asked about the Greenlight. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, the Greenlight was quite good, and I think that probably also as I had Kickstarter traffic that was pushing at the Greenlight, I would imagine. And this was before everybody was kind of getting cynical about Steam, and this idea that there's a bunch of crap on there and whatever. They're just pushing things through Greenlight. This was, I think, just before that happened. So, yeah, to be perfectly honest, I guess I don't know. It's probably a number of things, but our Greenlight was fantastic. We blazed through it, and God only knows what happened recently.
I feel like word of mouth is going to be a big thing, and it always has been with adventure games,
Right.
that people get invested in and get involved in a story and then want to be able to share that story with their friends.
Yeah, that's true, and we're getting that a little bit. I'm really hoping that like a few key reviews keep coming in that are positive. I mean, if we keep getting people ranting about how amazing it is, then we'll be in a great spot, obviously.
Yeah, it's really true with adventure games compared to, pretty much any other kind of game where screenshots or videos will really sell it. But an adventure game, you need somebody to tell you that the story's good without spoiling it. So that's kind of a trickier area to be in.
Right, yeah.
And that's really hard, because we've seen, how many reviews have we seen which have been kind of fairly spoiler heavy and stuff?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I get that. It's like a pet peeve of mine. I get that thing from like Game of Thrones all the time where somebody's like, dude, last night's episode, didn't see that coming. And it's like, okay, well, now it's ruined, basically. Like, I know something happens.
I read the books, I'm immortal.
Right.
Lucky bugger.
So there's a question from chat,
Yeah.
from Murdoch there, asking if you would consider a demo for the fall.
I've thought about it. I've talked to a few other devs about this, and the general consensus is that we suspect that demos are maybe more detrimental for a few reasons. So aside from the fact that it takes a tremendous amount of development time to put out a demo, you got to understand that a demo is a marketing tool, in which case it requires not just a sample, but a sample that's very specifically constructed to take you on a very specific emotional journey that creates a feeling of, I need to play more of this, which is a serious undertaking. That's a marketing job, right? So that's a whole other product. So if you do it poorly and people kind of have a mediocre experience and they say, oh, that was fun, but maybe I'll play Watch Dogs or something like that. Like if you put out a demo, it's got to be like crack. It's got to get people hooked.
Do you remember the Half-Life demo that was pretty much an entirely separate minigame?
I always think of that, the Uplink demo. I'll never forget it. It was amazing.
Another demo that is like that in the indie department is Blocks That Matter. That demo sets up an entirely own distinguished narrative.
Really? I never heard of that. Blocks That Matter. Interesting. And the Stanley Parable had a separate demo as well?
Yes, it took you through the motions of playing the Stanley Parable demo. It was hilarious.
Really? Interesting. What are you guys' thoughts? You think that a demo is a good idea?
I think it totally depends on the kind of game.
I would normally say yes.
I think a demo would be really hard for your game.
But yes, that too. And I would worry about, especially if you feel like you've identified that there might be some rough edges to the controls, that could end up counting really badly for on a demo. If someone goes, well, the controls aren't so bad, I'm not really that interested in investing the rest of the time in it. But if they're paid for it and it's not too bad, it's usable,
right,
then you can be a little bit more likely to overlook that.
In general, I almost always want a demo for a game, just because I need to know if it runs on my platform. I need to know that it's not so buggy that I can't start it or whatever. And certain games that it works really well with, and others it's it's kind of a mixed blessing. It's like for an adventure game, you get maybe part of the story, but you can't give away so much that it ruins it. And then at the same time, you don't want to be so bored by it that you don't want to buy it.
Right, and that's a damn good point, because Linux is a perfect example. I mean, even Unity says that the Unity build only works on certain distros. So, and there was a Cheese. Do you know if that other guy? There was a guy on the forum. I think he got that sorted. That problem where it just didn't run, right?
Yeah, he changed graphics drivers, and we weren't able to get any log output from him to work out exactly what had gone on. So I kind of still feel like it could be something that's out there, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, my thinking also is that the price point is fairly reasonable. I mean, for $9.99, I mean, you can get a coffee and a muffin for $9.99 nowadays, kind of. So, I mean, not that changes people's perception, but my thought is, especially during a sale or something like that, that it's small enough that I'm hoping people won't have too much of a problem buying it. But as far as the control thing go, we got some interesting feedback, because a few of my friends and early testers that played the game on the gamepad had a similar experience where they picked up the controls, they played with them for a while, and they were like, I don't really like the controls, and then they'd fidget with them for another 30 seconds, and then they'd go, and then they'd think, I wonder how you can fix this. And they'd say, well, no, and then they'd play for a little more, and then say, actually, they're pretty damn good, and they make sense. This is a thing that commonly happens. So I think that the controls are very unorthodox. They're very different. And by the way, this sounds like I'm making excuses right now, and I definitely don't intend to do that, because I'm all for fixing them if there's problems. But I think that there's an aspect to them that are just like, they're unusual. They're a little bit different. But once people kind of get their hand around them, they actually work pretty well on the gamepad anyway.
I think it's a really unique scheme for an adventure game to not have it forced to be point and click or whatever, but to kind of give you a more immersive introduction into it. But at the same time, there are issues, I think, with the mouse and not really knowing what's going on that kind of hides it from you.
Right. That mouse, yeah. Well, now I have a damn good idea for the mouse.
I look at a game like Factorio that they released the alpha for their game as part of their Kickstarter, just so people could kind of see what was going on, and that's really huge for that game. That really sold it for them, just because the mechanics were so unique that it didn't matter if most of the game wasn't even near done. But games like that really benefit from a demo. But this game, I think, is kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, and there's a big question about social media. Social media is related to what you just said, in that we played with the idea of putting out a demo early on, and I like the idea. And I think in the future, I'm almost considering toying with the idea of just having episode 2 be open development, even with the story. And there's this big thing where the main selling point of our game is the story and the character progression. So being too transparent, I'm afraid of ruining it. But we're in this era right now with games where there's so many games being made, and there's so many games that are good. You just told me about Factorio. I just Googled it. It looks really neat. I've never heard of this game before. And I'll bet you there's another 200 games that I would probably enjoy that I've literally never heard of. So when it comes to launching, I mean, the game that actually has a number of followers that people know about, that has had visibility for like years, like, I think that's probably where the leg up is. So I don't know. It's kind of a hard question. I mean, maybe the Fallout benefit, maybe it wouldn't, but I feel like I need to do something to get more visibility out there.
I think if you did do a demo of the Fall, I mean, you could potentially stop where you go up that first lift into the new area, because you've got a fair amount of mood and an introduction to pretty much all of the gameplay elements in that tiny first segment of the game.
Right.
It really kind of starts to set the tone there, and I do feel like it's that's the sort of point at which you would be going, I want to know more.
Yeah, that's true. And also, I could, just another idea, I could also stop the demo during the evaluation sequence when your brain's being scrambled there. I mean, that's not very much gameplay, but it's enough that it's a tiny taste and it's a cliffhanger.
Yeah, it might work.
That doesn't give you access to any of the combat mechanics, though.
That's true. No, that's true. There's no combat. Although maybe that'll just make people say, oh, that was a little bit fun to move around. I want to see what the combat's like.
Maybe.
I was going to say, you don't have to show all of the mechanics of the game to get someone interested. if you sort of imagine Brutal Legends demo, it doesn't actually convey most of what the game is. It just, gets you interested in the world to want to know more.
Right.
I think a good way to do it would be to end it there and then show maybe some videos of gameplay, just short sequences later that show that you can do more things, and that'll get people to say, "Oh, I want to buy it so I can do those things."
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea. And with like a little mini video. I guess a lot of demos do that, right?
Yeah, they do. You often see montages and that sort of stuff at the end of...
Or screenshots, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Lots of good ideas.
So, before we move on to the more regular cast content, is there anything else you'd like to share with us about the fall?
I think we pretty much covered it all, actually. I mean, I would say it's awesome and that everybody should go play it, but, that's the usual plug, so everybody kind of can assume that that's going to come out of my mouth anyway.
We're more than happy if you want to say it without, any double speak. I mean, you are here to talk about your game. We're quite happy for you to plug it.
Very cool, very cool. Well, anyway, I just have, so plug completed.
I did have one question I was going to ask.
Sure.
And you're certainly free to decline to answer if it's an unknown or considered too spoilerific. But I'm curious to know whether the other suit that you encounter in the game is actually on the same mission that you supposedly are.
Oh, let me think about that.
Because it feels like a bit of a plot hole.
Spoilers.
To me. Something that's unexplored.
But what if it's like Simon the Sorcerer, where it's a time-traveling...
John could be free to decline. It's cool.
I wanna answer because I'm excited to talk about the game. And if you were asking me offline, I'll give you an answer. But I think maybe I should step away from it. We do know exactly what it is, and it'll come in later.
Is that Arid's mission or the other suit's mission?
That's the other suit's mission. Arid is slightly disconnected from that suit. I can say that.
Well, she must be. I mean, that's kind of obvious with the way that the story plays out. But yeah, I feel like that's a dangling thread that will be interesting to explore, hopefully in the sequel.
Yeah, we're actually really excited about that. That thread is, I think, got to become one of the central like themes of the whole trilogy, and why we chose the name that we did, and a few other things actually. So I'm really excited to carry that forward.
I don't know if you spotted, but there's a forum thread on the Steam discussion hub where myself and one or two other people are talking about that particular aspect.
I did see it. I actually didn't read it because I'm like, well, I'm not gonna offer commentary on the story anyway. Although, interesting point. I'd like to get you guys' opinion on this. I'm finding something funny because I have this like pretentious indie artist thing in me where I'm like, okay, I made this story. There are certain themes that we wanted to communicate in the story and certain ideas, as there are in any story, and I wanted to stay away from commenting on it and like giving commentary and kind of like being like the fall is about this and it's about that and it's about this, because like I've always kind of had this idea where it's like, okay, well the game should speak for itself, like it's its own thing and it should succeed or fail on its own merits, and if I'm explaining it to people then it's kind of already failed and lots of stuff like that. But I'm realizing some interesting things with the marketing, which is this stuff just happened at E3, right? People are complaining about a lack of a female protagonist. I have a female protagonist, and I know we touched on that before the show. There's some masculine stuff going on there as well. So there's some interesting things in the story that I've kind of been like, okay, well, I'll just let them speak for themselves. But if I don't go out there and tell everybody about them, then nobody's going to know what the hell they are. And then, if nobody plays the game, that's a problem anyway, right? So I'm honestly sort of considering if I should open up a little bit and give commentary or write some kind of article about like, this is what the game's about and this is what we were trying to do with the story, so that people kind of are familiar and they're like, oh, this is an intellectual experience or blah, 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 or whatever, so that they know what it is. What do you guys think of that?
I'm a big fan of commentary stuff.
Oh, yeah?
But it's a double-edged sword, you like... If you've got something that's open to interpretation, people will interpret it in different ways than you intend.
Exactly.
And if you come out and you kind of stomp on that,
yeah,
that narrows the experiences that people can have in a way.
Yeah.
Even beyond letting the game speak for itself. You're like kind of cutting some people off from potential interpretations.
I agree. It's not fair. That is like part of the experience of buying the thing and playing it, is that you have your own experience. And if I come in and offer my own, then I'm like massively overstepping my bounds, and that's one of the reasons I haven't done it. I completely agree.
But that said, like if you are interested in something and you want to explore it, being able to understand and peer into an artist's intent, the creator's intent, that's really interesting and engaging for some people as well.
Right. Maybe there's something I can do to leave it vague, but still offer some kind of marketing material around that or something.
You could probably discuss areas where you explored how you wanted to take the game and didn't, because that won't spoil anything that's in the game, but give some hints as to some choices you did make, and that's a topic that some people like to read about. I especially do.
That's not a bad idea.
You can also talk about the bits that are in the game that you felt were executed well, and that can give you something that's interesting to talk about that doesn't necessarily define how things should be interpreted.
Right. Yeah, like the cross and stuff like that. There's like crosses everywhere.
Look at the commentary for for Portal or for Half-Life. Like half of them are about production experiences, some of them are about dead ends that weren't investigated, and a lot of them are just little anecdotes and little bits and pieces that don't really shape the experience or the perception of the game that you end up with.
Right. Maybe I should add a commentary. That would give me an excuse to have an update to Steam that I could refeature the game.
It could, and it could potentially be implemented using existing in-game mechanics.
It could, absolutely, yeah. Like those hovering nodes they have in Portal. I can just stick them in as like a flashlight node that's always visible. Like a little blue thing or something. Damn fine ideas. See, I'm glad I came here already.
And then you hook up an achievement to it, and then everyone will play through it again.
Everyone will love you.
Absolutely, yeah. Actually, I'm keeping a short list of achievement ideas that we don't have, but I should add. Anyway.
So on that note, we should move on to some of our regular show content.
Sounds good.
Are you going to hang around, John, or are you going to disappear?
You know what? I would actually like to hang around, but I've got to email Humble, and I told them I'd email him this morning,
yes.
And it's now 1:30, so I think I better run.
That's cool. Well, in that case, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh,
it's been a pleasure again.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's a pleasure here too. It's always good to talk to you guys.
Yes, it's great to hear from you again, and I hope maybe we can talk to you again when maybe episode 2 or any further projects you do are ready.
Absolutely, you can count on it. Thanks a lot. Okay, gents, I will see you again.
See you. All right, see you.
Cheers, or as they say in Canada, cheers.
Cheers. Right, we shall get on with things. SteamLUG community events. Over the past fortnight, we had a Worms Reloaded event just after the last cast recording.
That's a bit of fun.
A lot of fun. I took Linux Zen through, basically learning it again. That was a hell of a load of fun.
I hope you were kind to him.
Oh, no. I think I won both games in a row, and he was a little frustrated at that. Then we had Serious Sam 3. We played some Survival, and we did pretty well. I managed to get a gold medal for that.
And Survival was a pretty different experience from the co-op run-throughs that we've done, wasn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't take as long to get through, so we had quite a few people turning up, but as soon as you die, you have to just sit back and watch everyone else play, which is a little frustrating, because we had some good players there, so we had quite a few people watching other people play, so but yeah, really good fun. We rotated through quite a few maps, and yeah, I hope we do that again. We had a TF2 event. The server was full. Cheese dropped another load of gifts. That was lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a lot of players on that one.
Yeah, it went for like 5.5 hours by the time I disappeared.
Yep, as usual, we dropped into man v man towards the end.
Yeah.
Did you ever sort out the issue with some of those obnoxious players?
Yeah, we kind of sorted them out. It was okay.
It's always kind of draining, but for the most part, I think everybody had fun.
Yeah. Aside from that kind of one person at the very end there, I think we were pretty good.
That one guy was hilarious, but yeah, even after kicking him, he didn't really get it, did he?
After kicking him, he quieted down, but no, I don't think he quite got the message.
It's not really a pub server. Anyway, we also played No More Room in Hell. As always, great fun. Laggy zombies will kill you very easily in that. So yeah.
Did you make it to No More Room in Hell, DerRidda?
No, sadly not. I made it to none of these last events.
Which was a shame.
Ah, that's why you're being so quiet.
Yes.
It would have been really good if DerRidda had been there, because we played on a pretty big map. It's the one with like a shopping. It's got a shop, a cafe, and a multi-story car park. If you know that one.
Is that a newer one?
I have no idea. I've only played the game a few times. We were just protecting after waves of zombies were coming in, and just trying to find medical crates. We died fairly quickly, but I think we were just.
Oh, it was survival. It was not a campaign
Yeah.
map. I don't like the survival in that game very much. I rather play the campaign maps. They are quite awesome.
We played a few campaigns and we just changed it up again because sometimes sort of playing the same thing and failing 3 times in a row, you sort of think, well, let's change things a bit.
So we also had our we've been doing our regular Guns of Icarus online practice sessions, and today we had a fantastic run. Do you want to tell people about it, Nemoder?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Just recently they released a patch to fix a lot of the server lag on the big 4 versus 4 matches, and they had a few Linux fixes, I think, too, and so overall I think it went a lot smoother.
And we had I think by the time, because there were a few people who came and went, but I think all up we had 10, 12 people join us for the practice one.
Yeah, off and on about that.
So hopefully we'll get a good turnout for the post-cast event that we've got coming up after this show.
Tomorrow we have Awesome Knots. I hope everyone's going to enjoy that. I'm not sure I'm going to be here, sadly, frustratingly.
I'm going to have a go. I've never played it before.
It is awesome.
Well, if you want to like MOBAs but never could get into any one of the proper ones, this is for you.
I think you'll enjoy it, Cheese.
It's still a game with a pretty big skill gap if you haven't played it, and I've only played a little bit, but a few games I played I just absolutely got stumped.
Yeah, but this game has a bit of a problem where I would say they intentionally overpower some of the newer characters for a while, so people pick up the skins for them.
Makes sense, really.
Also on the horizon, we've got Battle Block Theatre. Have you guys played that at all?
Not at all, no.
Not me.
What's that like?
It's fun. It's this kind of cooperative, platformer where you got to run around a level, collect some gems, and go to the exit. But it's very easy to accidentally kill your colleagues, and mayhem ensues. It's fun.
I imagine that's on purpose.
The Magica effect?
It's like Newgrounds, the game kind of thing. It's got that feel to it. It's got heaps of Newgrounds developers involved with making it and stuff. It's hilarious and silly. I'm really looking forward to playing it.
And then the day after we have Hammerwatch.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play either of those. I'm not here. Ooh.
Yeah, if you haven't played it since our last event, they have updated the campaign quite a bit, polished it.
Yeah, it should be good.
And there's a new character in which is incredibly hard to play. It's still a game where if you don't play the ranged characters, you are doing it wrong.
I don't know, I think some of the melee characters are pretty strong now.
Until you get to these maggots that spit stuff at you,
Yeah.
then you really want to have a ranged character.
I think during the last event I played a melee character.
Isn't the Paladin or something like that can just kind of plow through everything? I don't know, it's been a few months since we played it last.
Yeah, it was a while back, hey.
Oh yeah, they added a thief that has a special attack that uses mana and shoots his goals, so you will actively throw away your skill points at enemies, while still not having the benefit of not using up mana. I hate that new character, but it's otherwise still a good game.
So, moving on to general community stuff, we passed the first anniversary of SteamLUG Cast on June the 5th.
Happy birthday!
Yay!
So 1 year ago, Swordfisher, John, myself got together and recorded the first episode of SteamLUG Cast. We talked about Linux gaming stuff, and and here we are today.
I thought you were going to give us a list then. We're as ill-prepared as ever.
Yeah, I thought I was too, but I couldn't find the tab. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
But yeah, any reflections on the show that you think are worth sharing?
I'm still as reluctant as ever to talk.
Needs more cowbell.
If I had a cowbell.
I'm still pretty new here, but seems like it's going on pretty well.
Yeah, I was kind of dubious at first. I wasn't sure that we were going to be able to maintain the momentum needed to keep something like this running. We were all pretty busy, but we're doing it, and it seems fairly sustainable. It's it's been great to be involved with, and it's been a real pleasure to share with you guys.
Mm-hmm. I think it's nice when we can swap out hosts, and it's, as we always sort of envisaged, it would be a cast of SteamLUG members. So if anyone in the audience is interested to appear on a cast, just to chat with us. Yeah.
Well, we could get Linux Zen in here with his professional soundboard and play obnoxious sounds while we're trying to talk.
No, it's great. I love the that's probably the thing I love the most, is the kind of different dynamics and different energies that we have when we mix up the hosts. That's really exciting for me.
Yeah, I get really confused when I call you Mim.
Also happening in the community, Halfshot wrote an article on the AMD open source drivers, which has been published on gamingonlinux.com.
I have not read this because I don't have an AMD card that works at the moment.
I think it's interesting to see people talking about and running benchmarks between open source driver versions.
I'm pretty impressed how well Mesa has come on between 10.0 and 10.2.
Yeah, it's really interesting stuff.
Yeah, what I've said over the last year is I'd probably seriously consider getting an AMD card by 2015. Kind of hoping by then that...
Well, but that would be a new one, and that would still be extremely crap on Mesa.
Well, I'm hoping by that time frame that some of those bugs will be worked out. Clearly, it's not quite ready yet.
Yeah, do we think that AMD is going to get a larger swing in graphics drivers? Well, graphics usage now with the main consoles using it, and people seem pretty happy with Mantle and DirectX 12 drivers and the rest. I think AMD is going to get a bigger look in.
I think it just depends how well they can stay competitive. I mean, if their cards fall behind NVIDIA too far, then they'll be in trouble.
Yeah, I kind of hope that they're... I mean, like, it feels like most drivers on Linux need attention still. But I'm really glad to see people, analyzing the testing, benchmarking the free software drivers, and looking at them as being legitimate and real when I feel like we have too many people being dismissive of them.
Yes, very much so.
Recently, I finished streaming Kentucky Route Zero for the Double Fine Game Club, and we had developers Jake Elliott and Tomas Kamenci join us to chat about the experiences of developing the game and kind of just sharing with us with critiquing and celebrating what is one of the most interesting adventure games I've ever played. If anybody is interested in checking that out, the chat logs are up, and there's some interesting stuff in there. And that is, of course, available for Linux, and you should go out and play it if you can find some way to enjoy a point-and-click adventure game. If you're not necessarily into that sort of thing, you may still find it interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting experience, not like most other games. So I hear the Gnome Elves have been working on SteamLUG.org.
Yeah, we had a bit of a hiatus on pushing updates to the site, but we've managed to sort out the cast pages. The feed is now properly validating in iTunes. That was a mistake that I made. It was causing a lot of server load, so we disabled something and it was making an invalid feed, so people in iTunes weren't getting podcast episodes. It's a bit of a shame, but it's just been on the back burner, really.
Yeah.
And the Twitter feed is now back on the site, and that was a community contribution.
Yeah. The cast page loads heaps faster now as well, which is really nice. And mammoth effort by everybody. It's awesome. Very glad to see that happen.
Yeah, good job.
Steam and Valve news. There have been a few client updates recently to the beta channel. If you're preloading a game, though on Linux we haven't seen any preloads, you can now put it to install in any of your Steam libraries. And the other change, VR mode is now enabled for the client. So, Cheese, did you try that out?
I did. There've been a couple bug fixes there.
Is it good?
I feel like I'm not necessarily qualified to answer that aspect, but I wouldn't mind. I plan to talk about some of the UI considerations that have gone into it and how some of that's been executed. But I'm going to talk about that in a video probably a little bit down the track. But I find big picture mode to be difficult to work with. I find it to be a little bit clunky, and so having a VR interface into it, doesn't magically make it amazing for me. It's still a bit slow and awkward, but it is executed fairly well. The best way to think about VR mode in Steam is that it's not necessarily about providing you with an interesting VR experience for Steam Big Picture mode. It's about providing you with a VR-friendly way of launching your VR-compatible games, so that you don't have to, take your headset on and off when you want to change between games or when you want to use the overlay or whatever.
It's basically the Arch in the holodeck.
Yeah.
You've got a virtual item in a virtual space to give you access to a real-world control. I want it to be an actual holodeck. They should get on that.
But yeah, the background feels like it's a little bit further away. There are a couple of little bit of foreground effects that do stuff, but for the most part, it all happens on a flat plane, and you can just look around. If you look outside of the big picture window, it's pretty much just that dark blue background color all the way across.
I wonder if they would ever allowing people to customize the residual space in that VR mode.
Yeah, that could be neat.
So you could dress up it as a room and then
fill it with fully clothed people.
Right. Why would I want clothes in there? Right, we have a new segment that we talked about last cast. So here we go. Tech segment. Unreal Engine 4.2 has been released and includes even more developer tools that have been tweaked and can be built on Linux. I'd actually heard they'd done a point release on top of that, but I don't actually know. Some news out of E3. This new device, the news dropped while we were recording. SteamBoy is a portable Vita-like device that you can run SteamOS on.
So sort of like something from Fallout.
No, it looks even worse than a Pip-Boy. The thing is, it looks like just an artist's rendering of a Vita with the Steam controller's pads added on. It doesn't look very ergonomic. And of course, apparently this is going to be a x86 thing, so I don't know how that's going to work well.
Yeah, I think a flip setup like the Nvidia Shield would suit that thing better to not look like Dumbo.
I cannot see how they're going to get any sort of power in that with any of the current chips. So,
What's about the Nvidia Tegra K1? What about that chip in there? Doesn't that do proper OpenGL to a decent degree?
Well, I've heard it can do a decent GL, but has it had any sort of desktop-style software on it? Yeah, as Dan says, it's an ARM chip, so people would still have to port stuff over to it.
Yeah, let's see about that.
Interesting.
An AMD APU cranked into that thing?
I mean, if Nvidia has to port something like Portal or Half-Life 2 over to their own device to get people to look at it, then I really can't see devs jumping on that until Nvidia can show that their devices have an ecosystem. And as we've seen on tablets and mobiles, that Nvidia tried to get into that market and they failed. They didn't maintain their drivers well enough, and it meant that OEMs stopped updating their Android software, and people just stopped buying their phones that had Nvidia chips in. It's really depressing. But let's move on to general gaming news.
Age of Wonders 3 is apparently going to be ported to Linux.
Yes.
Now, what is that, an RTS?
It's, I believe it's also 4X strategy, turn-based. I'm not familiar with that series, but it looks a bit like Civilization, just with fantasy stuff.
I wonder how much audience they're going to get now that Civ 5 is here for, people are going to be playing that for months and months, aren't they?
I hope enough to justify their efforts.
But that's great news either way.
The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is coming to SteamOS. You might have seen it when you opened Steam, the store page. Big pre-order button, 9 months before the game is even out. And it says in big letters, coming to SteamOS. But it doesn't even have the Linux icon in the Steam store yet, so, well, you shouldn't pre-order anything that far out anyway, but at least we know it's coming. And there was some nice gameplay footage shown during the Microsoft press conference from the Xbox version. So if you want to see how that game looks like, you can watch that.
Aliased.
Alias?
Aliased. Never mind. Homefront, The Revolution, which is a sequel to Homefront.
More like a reboot.
a critically flawed game that didn't sell particularly well. But apparently this new game's quite a decent... I mean, you were telling me just before we started recording DerRidda, it's actually looking pretty damn good.
Yeah, it was one of THQ's property, which got gobbled up by Crytek, and they know a bit about first-person shooters. Well, and it's coming to Linux, and there was some E3 footage, and it looks surprisingly good. They took a full 8 minutes in that demo to even start shooting, which is unheard of in E3 demos. It's mostly just boom, bang, and explosions. But no, it seems to be open world, very deliberately paced, until the points where you actually commit to shooting stuff up. And this might be a winner here. I would definitely keep an eye on that if you like A, AAA games, B, first-person shooters, or C, all of the above.
Cannot wait.
So, GOG have announced that they're going to release their own optional downloader, updater, friends management type app. Similar sort of thing to what you would have with Steam. What's your thought on this, guys?
My first thoughts, I aired on Twitter. I was like, God damn it, another bloody client. Just because I want to see more APIs in this space, not more front ends for custom APIs that all these damn sites are doing. But generally, to have a bit of competition in the client space and the convenience, and they've said they're looking into achievements and cloud saves and other stuff. I'm interested.
Yeah.
I have to say.
I'm interested for the fact that it will at least be a proper way to update GOG games, which has been horrible if you have not used the also horrible client they have been using so far. You have always had to re-download the entire game and install it over the old one if you weren't using that. I'm cautiously optimistic.
No, I'm pretty interested to see where it goes, and it's going to be nice to see something in the same kind of space as Steam that offers... I mean, it looks like they're trying to offer the same level of kind of friend management and achievement / or optional game integration stuff. There's not really that many other clients out there that have implemented that level of stuff, you know? Desira doesn't have any of the friend stuff. Uplay doesn't seem to be paying off on any of those aspects. Origin doesn't quite seem to be nailing it either.
Mostly Origin does seem to be working a lot.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to be getting much respect from gamers either. So they're having to give away free games.
No respect here.
Well, I don't mind. It's got Battlefield 3. Some people will install it just for that.
So, we alluded to it earlier. We mentioned it earlier. Who wants to say holy poop?
Holy poop!
Yeah, I think DerRidda really has to say that, considering one of our previous casts. We rather unfortunately discussed this a couple of casts ago, and I think we're incredibly depressed. And now we're pretty relieved, because it's a pretty good port.
Still got a couple of bugs. Small,
yes.
Little issues here and there.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm saying it's a good port, but yeah.
The kind of bugs you expect from a porter that has done their first Linux port, or even some that have done more ports. That's just little boo-boos you can forgive, and they will be fixed. Not like no performance on any decent system.
I think looking at the playtime that each of us have put in over the past couple of days really speaks for the level of quality there. I mean, if it was absolutely horrid, or if it was even half bad, I think I wouldn't have been able to spend 17 hours in it. You know, John wouldn't have been able to spend 12 hours in it. Nemoder wouldn't have been able to spend... How many hours did you spend?
Oh, way too many. I wasn't keeping track.
The thing is, if Witcher 2 is a fairly lengthy single-player game, and, you know, it's AAA and it's just come to Linux, you'd think that all of our friends list would still be full of people playing it, you know, in the evenings and the rest. And they're just not. Whereas quite a few evenings this week I've looked, and Civilization 5, Civilization 5, Civilization 5.
Yeah.
It's gamers crack.
I kind of have a hunch that Civilization 5 really fits Linux demographic a lot more than some of the other games. Because it's a game that casual gamers can really get into because it doesn't require constant attention and all that. And there's a huge, huge portion of people that use Linux that don't game very much, but would see something like Civilization 5 and pick it up and put a lot of time into it.
I could accept that, yeah.
Yes, Civ 5 is a game I have shown to my mother, and she's interested. Since I've switched her to Linux, she's missing some of her games, but that would grab her attention, so it's absolutely true.
And The Witcher 2 does sort of seem to be unplayable for some people.
For most people. You can't stress that enough for most people.
It's at a point where on low settings it's jarringly stuttery. And I'm used to PS3 gaming.
We do know that that they are trying to put some effort into getting the game up and running a bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But words are wind.
Well,
We'll see.
I'm happy to be open and optimistic about seeing that go somewhere.
I think we all are. So there has been some gameplay footage released for Civilization Beyond Earth.
This is the spiritual successor to Alpha Centauri.
That it is.
People keep saying that, but I would not be so sure about that. Some people have looked at that gameplay and said it's really more like Civ in space than Alpha Centauri.
When Alpha Centauri came out, it was heralded as Civ in space.
But I can't claim knowledge of that. I haven't played Alpha Centauri. But some people looked at the gameplay and it seems like there are distinct differences.
There are differences, and there are, changes and evolutions. I feel like Alpha Centauri built on the Civ franchise and was a stepping stone between the original Civilization and where the franchise has gone since then. And I hope that, Civilization Beyond Earth will sort of be the same kind of thing.
Continue to focus on story and characters, because that really made smack. I mean, it was, the gameplay was still pretty much Civilization with some interesting features in it, but what really sold it and made it memorable was the characters and the story.
Totally. I totally agree with that, yeah. Smack being Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri, for anybody who's not familiar with that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was trying to think of how to pronounce it, so I gave up and just said smack. Also, Pandora First Contact is now on Steam, which I still think is kind of overpriced for the kind of game it is. But, if you're really looking for that kind of hardcore Alpha Centauri type game, it's worth checking out.
Yeah. Alienware announces their thing that's not a Steam machine anymore. Who wants to talk about that?
Yes, it's pretty much that thing they showed during the Steam Machine reveals at CES, or what was it, earlier this year?
It was CES, yeah.
And I don't know why these outlets all picked up on that being a Steam machine, but they don't even call it that. They just call it the Alienware Alpha, shipped with Windows 8.1, modified for a controller-friendly UI, and an Xbox 360 controller, a wired one, or wireless one. So yeah, they are making a HTPC based on their previous Steam machine reveal, but it's just that, an HTPC for gaming.
Yep. I think they're just capitalizing on the PR of Steam machines by saying this was going to be our Steam machine, so then the sites take that. But yeah, it's a little machine. It doesn't look brilliantly powered, but if that was running SteamOS, we'd be more interested.
Lousy 4 gigabytes of memory.
It's pretty low.
I had this fear that most of the Steam machines are going to end up shipping with Windows and letting SteamOS be a user install option.
That would be disappointing.
Yeah, it would be very disappointing.
Well, Valve should say no SteamOS, no controller.
Yeah, I kind of hope they do make a stance on that.
Fairly certain they've made the stance of no branding as well, which is why this box has replaced all the logos with Alienware stuff.
So, Nordic Games have renamed themselves. They've pressed F2 and backspace a whole bunch of times and written THQ.
Yep, just a little update. There's nothing really meaty to it.
It's I don't know. It seems weird to me. And yeah, I don't know. Is it almost deceptive if nobody from THQ is really working there?
Well, if they continue with some of the IP, then it might not be that far off.
Does anybody remember the Voyager episode where that
No, Voyager's terrible.
doctor from the where that doctor from the race that has his organ-eating disease puts on the face
The phage.
Yes.
puts on the face of one of the Voyager's crew to attract B'Elanna Torres?
Oh yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
I would do that for B'Elanna.
Yeah, I have to say I kind of feel that way, but I don't necessarily think that Nordic are that bad. This kind of came out of the,
I don't know why people think this is bad. It's just a standard sort of branding thing. They've bought a more prominent and well-known name, and they're just attaching it. Like bricks and mortar stores know about THQ. They don't really know about Nordic. If this will open them up to selling far more games just through a sheer name change, I welcome it.
But they all know that THQ went belly up.
Do they?
Yes, which is why everyone will know that this is a new THQ, even though it's still called THQ.
Everybody will know that this is the necromancer raised corpse of.
Didn't Infogrames buy Atari and it Well, that didn't
rename
work out
themselves
so
or something.
perfectly. Yeah.
I mean, that's the weird thing. When you've got two well-known brands, who do you pick? I mean, most of the time they sort of concatenate or something, don't they?
Like Activision Blizzard.
As far as I'm aware, this shouldn't change the games that are coming out of Nordic at the moment at all. We did interview recently a Nordic employee, didn't we? I sadly wasn't here.
Yeah, we had Leszek Godlewski with us. It was pretty cool. It's a shame that you weren't here.
I know.
But we hope he's doing well.
Right, I think we're going to jump on to Greenlight news. This last fortnight, 74 games have been accepted.
Yeah, it's one less than usual.
I imagine they had a dropout. Probably Earth Year 2068. Anyway, 30 of them are for Linux. It's really hard to find games that would interest me. I know that other people, I'm sure, would find loads. I put out Fancy Skulls. We've mentioned it on the cast a couple of times, and that's been approved. Apart from that, we'll give you the links to have a look yourself.
On the Steam release front, we've seen a whole heck of a lot of games come out in the last fortnight. Possibly more than usual. John is particularly excited about the Tex Murphy games.
Oh yes, very much so. I picked up Under Killing Moon in like this little indie gaming shop in my youth. Absolutely bloody loved it. I'm glad that it's now on Steam to buy. You've got the two earlier games that I haven't played, Mean Streets and the sequel to Under Killing Moon, Pandora Directive, is also up. The most recent game that's just come out is not Linux tagged yet, but it might be coming. I do not know. But you can get all those four in a bundle. Oh, Thank You Bean's my name. Martian Memorandum was the other game's name. So yeah, everyone, including me, should be really excited for all the Tex Murphy games.
So for anyone who hasn't noticed, VVV has been updated. Our good friend Flibbertigibibo has put some effort into making SDL2 port of the game, which features some nice new windowing stuff. And the game itself has a couple of interesting content updates. It's well worth checking out. There's a new soundtrack called MMM to go along with that, which features metal remixes of the original soundtracks, pieces, tracks, things. It's cool. You should check it out.
But that is hopefully an option.
I thought the most interesting feature was a level editor.
Oh yeah, the free level editor.
Mm-hmm.
Very exciting.
So wow, that's a massive expansion for such a small but loved game.
Well worth checking out.
It's the first platformer I really digged in a long time.
I wanted to mention this little game, Floating Point. Have any of you played it?
I have not.
Oh, that's a shame. You control this little dot, you have a little grappling hook, and you can fling yourselves around. That's pretty much the premise of it.
It looks cool.
You're controlled by gravity. It's so soothing. You just sort of sit there, fling yourself around to collect these little bars that are sat on ledges.
Just a single player game?
Yeah, just single player.
And that's free to play, right?
Absolutely free to play. You can download it right now. It's a little small executable, and just enjoy it. It's made by the developer of Gunpoint. He said he was so happy that he did so well with his first game that he just wanted to release a little game as a mini thank you, and it was just something he was playing around with and has released it.
Anything else that's exciting for you guys in the lineup, DerRidda or Nemoder?
Cree looks interesting, especially after Starbound doesn't come out with any new content.
Yeah, nothing else comes to mind.
So yeah, I might be looking at that to play with some friends.
We do have a Starbound event towards the end of the month. I'm hoping we'll see an update before then.
I really hope so. It needs it.
I feel I need to mention this DLC because Swordfisher is not with us at the moment. Secret of the Magic Crystals has had the Race DLC added. If you like horses and racing, check that out.
It looks like an interesting addition.
I think that's all the releases we wanted to mention.
Yeah, that's me done.
Fair enough. Anything? Oh, we might as well mention Towerfall Ascension.
Oh yeah.
It's finally been released. It is a great local co-op game. If you've got a couple of friends that are over, whip out your controllers, you'll really enjoy it. It's a platformer, you just have a bow and arrow, and it's pretty manic.
Someone in chat has mentioned Will Fight for Food. That's a game that is also included in that list of Greenlight titles. I believe it's already released and can be found on DerRidda at the moment.
Looks like.
So moving on to crowdfunding.
I pulled this game out. A couple of people on Twitter were talking about it. It looked interesting. It's a roguelike smash 'em up.
It's got your name in it.
Yep. It's called Frank and John. Really simple, subdued graphics, but still quite the art direction is very good, and I just thought, I'd link it. It's not doing as well as I'd like for a funder, but have a look. Right, I think that has been SteamLUG Cast.
Thanks to you guys for joining us. It's been fun.
Well, it has.
Yeah, we'll thank John for coming and chatting with us about the fall.
And we'll dive across into the event channel and play some Guns of Icarus.
Guns of Icarus.
As always, you can email us, cast@steamlug.org, for any feedback. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
Holy poop!